Okay, I will start by giving you a brief overview of what Crystal is and what it can do. Right. So Crystal is a compiled language that makes it so that you don't have to use an interpreter for it. Uh, the code directly actually it's also it goes it directly translates to the more low level assembly language, and then it can run pretty fast. This software is advertised to actually run as fast as C, and but the syntax being much more less difficult to code. So it's a syntax that is language syntax that is very similar to Ruby. And anyways, there's a lot of different applications or different things you can do with Crystal if you also use specific modules that are made by other open source developers, such as this module. They call shards, and I'll show you how to basically use shards to you know do more specialized type of computations. So we'll start by installing. So you just go to the website. I'll just place all the link descriptions below, all the links to below my video description. So you go to install on the main Crystal site, and then you'll see that there's a lot of Linux distributions you can install this to. So there's even like if you want to install it through Windows, you need to get like a Linux emulator. Just download one. And there's also one for Macintosh, right? And the process for Macs is very simple. Just go through these instructions. I myself don't have either Windows or Mac, so I'll just go through the installation for Ubuntu, which is the one that I have, and how I did it basically, right? So for this one, it's as simple as actually. Please do not do this one because it will give you some problems. It will not work so well. So what you're going to start with, if you have Ubuntu, you're going to start by copy pasting these 3 lines. Okay, this will basically unpack the installation files to your computer. After you do these, after you copy paste it on the terminal, which is this thingy if you're not already familiarized with it, right? After you copy them in the down terminal, you will install, right? So after you copy paste these and enter in here, you will copy paste this line, and this will basically install Crystal, right? So just like copy paste, and then you just type your password. Oops. And then after you do that, you'll basically have it installed, right? Now, given that I'm going to show you some applications with a required module, with an imported module, which in this case is a imported Crystal shard, you will need to copy paste all these lines as well because they will be needed for that. So you can please do that as well. Just copy paste down in your terminal, so you can have all these dependencies as well. That would be helpful. And after that, please copy paste these lines, and then do not do the Numcr installation. This will already have it basically be everything you need to do for on the installation end. Okay, so after you've done that, it's always good to like look at the documentation on the site as well. I found this particularly helpful. It gives you actually 2 examples that you can copy paste, or you can build files on to show you how to use it, right? You can just click on the 2 examples. You just copy paste this whole thing in as a Crystal file, or if you copy the others, it will give you it will show you what some of the capabilities of Crystal. Now we're going to start with a very simple example, right? So after you've done the installation, you can always find which version of Crystal you have by just typing Crystal and version. And in this case, I have 0.35.1. So that's just to make sure that you have it, right? We can start with a very simple program, and we'll basically just do a hello world as everybody does, right? So for hello world, we'll just basically make a file which just same name, hello world, and we need to give it a Crystal extension. So the Crystal extension is .cr. Okay, so we just create a file, And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually, let me give it a different name here. Let me give it hello underscore world. Okay. So now we're gonna open this empty file because it will be empty. And we're gonna open it in Notepad. As you can see, it's empty. We're gonna paste here is the very simple syntax of printing syntax of a crystal, which is just basically writing puts and then followed by whatever you want to print. All right, so I'll just copy paste these two lines. As you can see, the pound sign just means it's a comment, so nothing happens in line 1, nothing happens in line 2, everything happens in line 3. Okay, we just copy paste that, and now we run it. Let's run it now. So after you save that file, close it, and now in order to run something in Crystal, you just type crystal and then run, and then the name of the file we created. In this case is hello world. And there you go. Right? That's basically what we wanted it to print. Now, of course, you can see that it took some time, right, to build, to run and everything. So if you want to actually have build applications and deploy applications, right, that where all the computations have already been done, then you would have to type crystal build followed by the name of the file, of the crystal file, right? So this will basically build a file on the format of dots dash as the prefix. Oops, sorry. It's supposed to be like this. And after it's built, right, so it creates this dot dash file, and then you can just execute it by just typing it, and you can do it several times. Okay, so if you have like a program where you have to run all computations, or just like a program that you just need to define some inputs to, and then it gets deployed in that way, that's a very easy way to do it. Now I'm going to show you, as I mentioned, also how to import modules and run modules on Crystal. The module that I'm going to use as an example is known as num.cr, but there are actually a wealth of different shards, they're actually called shards, that you can find if you look a little bit closer, if you explore internet a little bit more. So this repository is particularly helpful for that. I'll also place it under the link in the description, the video description. Each of these links take you to a different shard you can import import as well, and you can classify it according to like a certain there's certain functionality. There are data structures, C bindings, blockchain is somewhere there, data generators, etc., 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 etc. Okay, one of them, the ones that I found more attractive to me, was the num.cr, which is a shard for scientific computing. All right, so now we're going to go through the installation. Installation is very simple. It's just basically adding these lines of code to this file, and I'll show you in a few what this file is and how you make it. So to make a project, that's what we're going to do now. There are two ways to make it. Let me see if I remember. Hopefully, oh yeah. We start a project by typing crystal and init as an initializing. Then there's two different types of projects we can make. We can make a project which is an application, or we can make a project which is library. I think they're basically very self-explanatory, but an application is basically something that you use as a program to execute functions, and library is something that can be just a type of script which stores some information that you may need later on to run a program, right? Like a dictionary or something like that. So it will build an app. So just type crystal init app. Now I'm just gonna give it, just after you type to make the app, after type that, you type the name of your app. I'm just gonna call it first app. So then we enter, and that's basically what it made. It just made a folder that is called first app. So we're gonna go inside this folder, and here it is. So those lines of code, that line of code actually, it created this whole thing that you see, right, which has some hierarchy and some already pre-made folders. That's redundant, pre-made folder. Okay, so and as you can see, also you have this shard file that we saw earlier on being referred to in for installing this shard, right? So what we do is we open the shard file, and it tells us that we need to add this to applications shard YAML. So we copy paste, everything is copy paste. We copy paste it somewhere in our shard file. Oh, sorry. We copy paste it somewhere in our shard file. And now, as you can see, our dependency is declared. Here, this file, it can be also used to give you some details about your app, right? The name of your app, authors, I'm not gonna write my email, targets, first app. So we just leave it as is, and we license some legal protection, we just save it, okay? So after we have added these 3 lines, basically. After we save it, we close it, and then we go back to this, right? So let's go back to our folder. It was called, so our folder, as you can see, has a source file, and this is the file which we'll basically change to perform the whichever functions we wanted to do, right? So if we want to import that shard, we need to type require, then followed by the name of the shard, which in this case is num. I know that you see it here also, crystal data dash, sorry, is it dash? Backslash num.cr. You don't need to, please do not type the suffix because it may not make it work. So you just need to type num for this case because that's the name of the shard, or the core shard, sorry. And so after we've done that, and we're gonna add some code to it, right? Actually, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that. I forgot about something, sorry. So after you added, right? After you added num to your shard file, which was the file that I showed you before. Basically, the file that I showed you before was this one, right? So after you've done that, what you need to do is you need to install the shard, okay? And this only needs to be done once for your project, for any project that you're building. So for this folder, it just needs to be done once, or every time you add more dependencies to your project, all right? So after that, you don't need to do it. So we're gonna go inside the project folder, first tab, and now we're here by changing directory. And now what we do is, as I mentioned, is we go type shards and install, okay? Now, for me, it's gonna be very simple because it's just gonna give me, everything is gonna look green, but you may encounter some problems. You may actually have something turn red, and that may be because you don't have clang installed. So you're also gonna do the step of typing sudo apt install clang before you do this shards install command, right? So besides that, also you see that there's a declaration that has turned yellow, and this is telling you that it doesn't match the tag version. That's just like a warning. It doesn't matter. It just ends up installing the most updated version in the end nonetheless. So this basically is telling us that everything was done correctly. Everything was installed. Basically that num.cr was installed for this project, and so was OpenCR and something else. All right, so for people that have some issues or some red flags here, you need to type this line, okay? Sudo apt install clang. You'll write the password, it will install it, and then you go through the shards install. All right. So, anyways, after that's done, now our import will be complete of the num.cr library or whatever it is, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at some examples here. I'm just gonna copy paste some examples from their site to just show you some of the functionality that Shard has, right? Oops. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get it or open the notepad file of our source file. Open a notepad of our source file. Yeah. So as I've already done, right? I added this require num line, which basically is like a analogous to the import module for Python. And then after this, there's some type of like organization. As you can see, some hierarchy for the indentation. So I just copy pasted the code from the documentation here. I just copied it. I mean, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna paste it, and this is basically what I pasted. So I just need to indent everything. The beauty of Crystal is that the indentation, it will understand the indentation, the whole indentation, no matter how far it is indented. Okay, so anyway, so these are the lines that I added. I just added lines 7 through 10, but just adding them by themselves will not do anything because I haven't. It's just gonna build everything and not print anything that it's been built. So as you might have already, as I might have already told you, right? Printing statements are done with just typing puts next to the printing state, next to the variable or string. So I'll just basically what I'll be doing is I'll be assigning variables to each of those different lines that I added from the documentation, and I'll just add puts print A. Puts by itself is just a space. Puts B, space, puts C. Oops. C. All right. So now you save it, and now let's see what it does. So we'll just close it, and now we just run it. So we crystal run source. Oh, sorry. So source is just the folder that we need to go to, followed by inside the first tab, right? Followed by the crystal file. Now we run it. All right. So as you can see, it printed. Let me just open a new one. No, let me open the get it one again. So what it did is it printed A, B, C, and it didn't print D. I forgot about that. So let me just add it. Right. So now what it did is it printed A, B, C, D, which is here expressed as A, B, C, and D, which is this random tensor. Now that's a very, very cool and all good, right? But just wanted to show you some additional functionality of it. I guess there's no difference between A and B. It's just that I guess A and B just have a different data type in some way. But what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you how far we can push this the functionalities of num shard of the num shard. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna uncomment that whole line. Now, as you can see, this variable is just producing a tensor of zeros. We can do we can do more than that even. We can do 10 zeros. Put C. We just run it, and it can give us like very large arrays. It doesn't have to be zeros. It can be any other number as well. There's ways that you can populate it. I'm just going to give you showing you a brief overview. You can go even to 10,000 or 1,000, and it can do it relatively quick. Right, so oops. So it can do it. Right, so that's and now I think run is taking some time because it's just compiling it and going through an extra step. There are actually other ways to run it way faster, right? This is like kind of like my first time, one of my first times running the software, so the language. Now you have like other capabilities as well, such as there's other with num you can also create CL tensors, and these have more of a. So just open it because I don't want to like mislead you with what I'm saying. So CL tensor is a. Actually, if I don't know what it is, I'm not going to go through it. But I know that, for instance, if I type it here, it's not going to give me good results. So let's see. It's going to pop out an error. And the reason for that is because you need to install some additional libraries for these to work. Right? So I'll just show you what I mean by that. Let's say that I'm just going to run these two advanced tensors, which are actually used a lot for like machine learning and GPU stuff. Let's say, see, it gives me an error. Oh, some tensor. Okay, so it didn't work because the tensor is not defined, right? So let me just like do a more practical one. Okay, so I guess some tensor requires an input, right? And the input is what? Actually, the input is actually called some tensor, right? So some tensor can be A, oops, which is already declared here, right? So, so it's here, right? But let's just uncomment it, okay? And we're just gonna be basically we're just gonna be running this, right? And we're gonna print it, puts. So you can see that it gives me an error, right? And this is because I need to install OpenCL for this or some module thereof. And this is why this is not something that I have done. But if you go to the documentation, they'll probably tell you that they'll probably tell you that you need to install some third-party libraries. And for that, you basically need to Google and just copy and paste and how to install on Ubuntu or how to install in Mac, and all of these libraries basically, right? So just Google those and see if you can install it. This is basically what I've shown you right now. Now, of course, there are other ways where you can run matrix or tensor operations. One of them that comes to mind through Crystal. One of them that comes to mind is TensorFlow, which I think it maybe has some additional. There may be some additional support for that. But anyways, this is all I had, and just wanted to give you like a very short overview of how you could like import shards and or modules and do some simple stuff with Crystal. All right. So that's basically it. If you like my video, please like and subscribe if you really like my content. All right. Okay. That's it.